Let me ask you kind of about a local issue that I've heard so little about for a while. You hear a lot about the Corrections Department budget. Mr. Shumlin is certainly, and Mr. Dubie have kind of gotten into that. But of course, what happened in St. Albans Town a few years ago was a conversion of the Northwest State Correctional Facility from a men's prison, most hardcore inmates in the state, to a women's prison. And what happened, of course, at that point was local police, local law enforcement could no longer bring males. Any males they arrested to there had to go to Chittenden if there's room there. And I guess fortunately for local law enforcement, there's typically been room at the Chittenden facility. Was that a good move?
I don't think it was. I don't think, not so much the fact that the local police departments have to bring them to Burlington or St. Johnsbury or something. I think the big drawback was if you're in Bennington, you have to bring a female. You got to bring them all the way to St. Albans.
Right.
So I think
that's the one women's prison in the state now.
That's the one. I mean, they could have gone to the Dale building in Waterbury, or Windsor, or they had a small section of the Chittenden Correctional Center, but the one in Windsor was more centrally located for the women. Now the whole state has to drive the whole length of the state to bring them up here. I don't think it was well thought of. They put a lot of money into the building to convert it for women. I think it actually costs money.
Some thoughts on that?
Well, I spoke with Senator Sears when they were closing it, and I said to him, there's 19 openings for women in Framingham. I knew that was his original base.
As in Framingham, Mass.
And we have some down there now. I think there's 18.
Are there some female inmates there?
We sent some down, right. Really? And he wanted to know, I said, I knew a fellow that worked there. Anyhow, at the time when he was shipping them out of state, I'm totally against it. I said to him, is that like Andersonville? It's just a one-way ticket? And of course, that didn't go over too good, but we're spending $6 million. It seems if we could train our own, and there's some of these that they arrested here that sort of migrated in, maybe send some of them down. But our own prisoners, we ought to be able to retrain them. When they come back from there, I don't even know if they could even play football, but I don't think there's any training for them when they're down there. We ought to rehabilitate. They're part of the system. I wouldn't spend $6 million to send them down south.
Realize you're on House Transportation. Or last session, do you hear any buzz about the future of Northwest State? Are you hearing anything about the prison?
Well, I was hoping we could get it back.
There was some talk about trying to get some federal prisoners in there and actually make some money.
So we get a sewer system for the town. That's what I was hoping for. That would be, we have the land down there in the facility, and it's. But I didn't hear any buzz about. Maybe some of the others have.
Interesting. Lynn, any thoughts on the local prison in your town?
Well, I'll add to the issue of the fact that it's been converted to women. I mean, this was one of the issues that really affects us personally in the entire county. Not only are we not able to go and take our male prisoners for overnight stays and for inebriation and for a variety of things to a local spot to hold them, and sometimes you can't get into the Chittenden Correctional Center, but it also means that when we have a woman that's going to be arraigned and taken care of, have a court hearing or whatever down in Bennington or Brattleboro or someplace else, our sheriff department is the one who has to take 2 people down there. And it creates a real hardship for them in terms of they have to cover for themselves up here and go on call and then transport and take care of these people. And a lot of times you hurry up and wait, get down there, and instead of it taking, an hour for the thing, you get there and you wait and wait and wait, and then you have to bring them back up again. And so things were discussed in Montpelier this past couple of years about having, video conferencing, and there's they tried a little bit of it, but there's things that you can do with technology that will make that piece a little easier. But that really is a hardship on us paying for the sheriff's services, having to transport.
You hearing anything about the prison these days?
Well, they're now full. When they first opened, we went through a tour of it, and it was, I think it was last summer, and it was not full. Is now full.
Capacity for males used to be, I think, about 235 or so.
I don't think it's that many. It's more like 180 or 160. But anyway,
it is full.
But there was a lot of discussion in the House this year about the capital budget and about the challenges for change with the correctional adjustments for the Corrections Department. They were looking for $7 million, and early release of prisoners was one of the issues they brought up. And there was a lot of discussion about it, led primarily by Paul Poirier, who was out of Barrie, because places like St. Albans and Barrie and St. Johnsbury and Newport and Bennington have a higher percentage of our population who are under the direction of Department of Corrections. And this creates, they come here because we have the services and we have the inexpensive housing, and so they come, but there really isn't, with the way things are going with the budget, the services are sort of limited. So we have to really, the point was that some communities are more burdened than others just by virtue of the fact of having these services and having these people living in these communities. Concern that we really in St. Albans should be concerned about, because it does affect our area.
Todd, do you hear that issue at all?
I'm not hearing that issue at all with that, but I think that most of the focus has been bread and butter issues more than that. Obviously, there's some tangential relationship with the corrections budget and so forth. I think obviously the transportation costs is a really horrible allocation of monies. That there are technological solutions. Lots of people around the rest of the country do use video arraignments and the like. So there are some technological solutions, I think, to help us save some of that there. But as an issue, I know most of the people I've talked to have been more concerned about the more immediate kind of checkbook issues on that. Not to say that doesn't come up when we talk, but that's not the first thing.
What about crime in general? Certainly has been a significant issue in St. Albans City for a number of years. Is that just public safety, crime come up much in your travels?
What's been coming up, it's been in the context of some of the ugliness at the gubernatorial level. People maybe not people getting more misinformation and kind of rhetoric and so forth, rather than any real hard information that helps them make decisions. So people are concerned, and certainly rightly we have to look at what does early release mean really. Ron and I have talked about people having the truth in sentencing, serving their full minimum sentence and what have you. But where are our priorities with some of the nonviolent offenses that we're putting people into prison in the first place? We have a burgeoning prison population. We might have to look at are we just putting people away for the wrong things, first of all, in the nonviolent sense. And I think, unfortunately, there's been some confusion about what constitutes nonviolent in some of the debates. But we also have to look at then what are some of the things we can do preventively. And I think that's where Peter Shumlin's plan, which has been attacked, it actually has some good sense of investing a lot of things early on, where you can start diagnosing behavioral problems, give people the kids the nutrition that they need, the education that they need for the right outcomes, so they're going to be less of a burden on human services and on the corrections budget in the future. That doesn't help address some of the people who are there now, but then we can, as Dick said, try to help deal with some of the recidivism by giving them the kind of rehabilitation that they need. I think that's one of the other things that's missing. So, businesses know you have to invest money to make money, and I think we have to invest money in some of these ways to save money. Ultimately, I think we just have to kind of take that more rational return on investment approach.